Latina Leadership Podcast, the podcast made for Latinas by Latinas. Get comfortable, amiga, and enjoy the conversations.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Latina Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Anjelica Casares. On today's episode, I have an amazing guest. Now, I read up on her, but as usual, as per we always do for every guest, I like for the guests to introduce themselves. So, Barbara, can you introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, and what you do?
So, my name is Barbara Holguin. I actually am the owner of Discovery Alcohol and Drug Education Program. It is a business now that's been in operation for the last 7 years. It's an alcohol and drug education program, and we also have treatment services as well. I came from a background of criminal justice and law. So for the last 20 years, kind of put all that together, and I created what now is our treatment facility.
Barbara, okay, so you said you have the experience in criminal and law. What did you do in criminal and law?
So it's a very weird way that all of this came about. It's such a unique niche of a business that I have. I was a probation officer in the courts and the jail system. And so that's what my degrees are in, was in the criminal justice, and then the emphasis in the legal system. So I left in 2016, and I had no idea that all of the skill set that I had was extremely unique out here, especially with our Spanish-speaking community. There was a lot of needs that needed to be met, and I was able to do that in a very unique way.
Barbara, when you said you started the school, so I have a few things here that I want to talk about and I want to touch on. I definitely want to touch on the experience that you have. I understand that you were a probation officer, but what led into transitioning from being a probation officer to opening your own DIY? Is it a course? I'm not sure if it's a course, but your own DIY, Jesus, DWI. DWI.
DWI.
Yeah. So what led to opening that, and why did you figure that would be something that you would be interested in doing? Well, what led to it? That's so distant and different. Yes, it's in the same space, but it's so probation officer to an instructor, basically.
Right. Yeah. So it was that big of a gap. I didn't know where I was going with it. I had no clue. But I got to see a lot of the clients in the courtroom. Once they got their terms, they kind of just got dropped off in the community, and they didn't know what they needed to do next, especially our Spanish speakers. There was no instruction or no good follow through, I should say. And so my understanding of what the court's requirements and what those attorneys and judges needed from the clients, it didn't really exist out here in the community. It existed in the courtroom, but once they left the courtroom and they're on their own, that was it. And so that's kind of where I was able to use that, my training and understanding what they needed to have done, the clients, and then coming out here and doing it from this side of the courtroom on the outside and helping them. So it was a very big gap. You're right. It was a jump. I was looking for something that I could do to be at home with my kids. And so I created a schedule where I could teach at night and on the weekends, so I could come home. And so that's kind of where the priority was at.
So I do know, and I understand that I want to hear you talk. I want to hear, and I want this to be just you. I don't want to cut you off at any more. You are very bubbly, and you have an amazing personality, and that I want that to come across. So I want to give you the opportunity to talk about yourself and talk about being a stay-at-home mother, finding your repassion, your opportunity, your next opportunity, and then give us a little bit about what were your struggles? What was that like for you? And how is your entrepreneurship journey going at this moment?
I was just so focused on coming home to my kids. I never realized the amount of guilt I would feel as a Latina that I should be home. I should be taking care of my own kids. My kids were the first kids dropped off at daycare and the last kids picked up, and it killed me every day to go into work. So, I'm sure a lot of moms feel that. It was just it was so much that I couldn't work anymore. So I decided to figure out a way to come home to them and still use my background, because I needed to be able to accommodate and supplement our income and find ways to make it work and still take them to school and do all that. So I started teaching those education programs that I mentioned to you earlier for somebody else in the evenings and the weekends, and then that way I could be home with them during the day. But then after a year, I realized I can do what they were doing, but better. And so after a year, I started my own business, where I was providing those education classes are actually required by the state to release clients' driver's licenses when they picked up a DWI case. So they're very specific, these classes and these trainings and these certifications and licenses. Like I said, it's a very tiny niche. And my direct competitors, I'm all against, it's all males, it's all men. But I come from that industry, that background, where in the jails and in the prisons, most of my colleagues, I am typically grouped together with the men in those kinds of situations. So that didn't bother me so much. I just felt like there was more that could be done. And so whenever I opened Discovery in 2017 on my own, I was still mom first. I've always been mom first, no matter what. That was the whole goal, and that's why I do what I do still today. But I was teaching on the weekends and nights, but then I realized that as I got more instructors on board that were bilingual, a lot of them were females, and which was perfect, but they were hard to come by. To find a bilingual female that had the certification and training that I needed them to have to do what I did. So I started training more. And then now it's become, we are a clinical training institute. And so now I'm also training bilingual counselors. Again, a lot of times they are typically mostly female in that community. As you know, as you get more counselors, they just tend to be more female. And then finding bilingual ones, it was just such a struggle. So I had to go out to the colleges and find interns and bring them in just so that we could meet the needs of the community. And it just is still not being done enough. So I started doing that on my own. And then as I started finding these bilingual counselors, I realized that a lot of the Latina women in the community, we don't have a lot of confidence when it comes to being our own kind of supporting ourselves in that regard, like being a business person. And so then I started working with our bilingual counselors on little things like opening a checking account, things like understanding a credit score, the basics that I encountered as well, though. So these are not, I can offer that to them because I encountered that. When I started the business in 2017, I couldn't even open a business account. I had no credit history. I had nothing. So they started me in a mentorship program, and I highly recommend that to anybody opening a business. The Small Business Association. They taught me how to build up my own credit, open a business checking account. But I had none of that. And I had been working since I was 16, and I had no clue on how to do any of that. I'd always been attached to all of my husband's things. I had nothing of my own. So that was a lot to learn. And then also to teach that to the other women that I was now empowering, in a sense, with their own income. They would come to me and say, I bought tires for my husband. I bought work boots for the kids, so it was amazing to see that what started as just me coming home to my kids is now developed into bringing up other women in the community that are learning how to do these things on their own as well.
Thank you for that. So what is on the horizon for the instructional school? What is on the horizon for the next step in entrepreneurship? What is it like your foreseeable? And I want to ask you this because you have an amazing potential to grow that business that you have underneath you, whether that be through investors, opening more schools and all of that. So I'm trying to dig a little bit into your business plan. What does it look like for you for the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I didn't even realize that I liked looking at where there's a problem and then finding a solution. When I saw that what the need was that I was encountering in court, it didn't. I saw it, but then until I got on the other side out here in the community, I was like, wait a second, like we can fix this, and it doesn't exist yet. Oh my gosh, I would tell that to anybody else. You think that it already exists. You think somebody's already doing it, but they're not. Nobody's doing it. So I'm glad that I didn't listen to that thought and I just went out there and did it. But yes, there's still so much more growth that's needed. We have the resources, and I think in the Latin community, I think that it's out there, but to be heard, for the different platforms to speak up and say, hey, this is where it's like the connection sometimes is lost. Yes, I want to expand. There are secondary locations. There's a second and a third location already mapped out, so that more so to be able to meet the needs of our Spanish speaking clients. I'm moving more into some very rural areas where they don't have access to Wi-Fi or somebody that can explain to them and things in Spanish as they leave the courts. So that's next on the horizon. But again, this wasn't really something I was trying to do. I just wanted to be home with my kids. But there's a need for it. So as different people in the community have come forth, so I work very closely with the courts and different judges in the areas. And so different counties have reached out and said, we need this service, or we would like to team up with you. So that's where those other locations will end up at. But just to meet the needs, though, of course, and to be able to get that out there where it doesn't exist yet. But for myself, I'm realizing that I have a voice, and I need to keep pushing. Learning and teaching these women, it definitely lit up a passion inside of me, made me realize that we need to know how to do these things, to stand on our own and to have this kind of confidence. I didn't realize I could do this on my own. I didn't need my partner, to buy a car or to open a checking account. I had no idea, which is, it sounds so silly, but I think that needs to be discussed.
I love how you found more than what you were expecting. You definitely found a sense of yourself is already there, but a sense of different version of yourself that you're like, hey, there's so much to me. There's the horizons are endless for us out there, and we think we're limited to what it is that we have in front of us, not knowing that we can dream a little bit more. And I like that you're dreaming and that you're reaching high. I like that because I truly believe that you're going to reach there. But Barbara, before I move on, I want to. For sure, I want to let you get back to your babies. So before I do that, I have just a question to you that I ask everybody on the podcast itself. Do you consider yourself a leader?
Absolutely. I don't think that I thought of myself as a leader before. I always shied away from who wants to take on more work. No, I didn't want to. We were already. I say we as women and the obligations that we carry to the household, to even as a business owner, I still do all these things. Laundry's Friday day. All of these things are still a very big part of me, and they'll always be. To be able to come home and to do these things for my kids and to do these things for my home is still something that's deeply rooted in me. And I do believe that's my culture, and I celebrate that. But I didn't want to take on a leadership role. No, that's crazy. But as I realized that there just was a need, this is now my role. This is now I need to speak up, and I'm fully embracing it. I didn't have the confidence before, and now I do, and I would like to continue to lead other women. That's any platform, anywhere as I can say that, I'm going to say that, because I'm here with them, and I'll be here with you the whole step. So yes, I am a leader.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Barbara, thank you so much for taking the time and having this really short conversation with me. But by the looks of it, I want to see your space. So I don't know where in Texas I have to travel to see your space, but I definitely do want to do that. So with that being said, is there anything that I didn't touch on? Well, you know what? How can we reach you? Like, if we're looking for a course or we're looking for you individually, where can we find you?
I think Working with a mentorship program, and I don't think that everybody realizes that those exist. The Small Business Association, that was a big part. Going to your local bank. I had a banker that worked specifically with me on learning how to open up an account and building a credit. Time blocking, I would highly recommend to figure out ways to set aside an entire day for things like networking, an entire day for your marketing, an entire day for mopping. I think time blocking is probably one of my biggest hacks, my life hack. I don't try to time block hours. I give myself a whole damn day. It's going to take me all day to move all the sofas and to mop. So I give myself a whole day. So I think that's a big one. I think we love to lie to ourselves and say, I'm going to say from 9 to 5. I said, no, do whole days, whole day, do whole day. So I do training and it'll be one whole day. So I just want to make sure that those are great tips for anybody starting off, I think.
Awesome. And where can we find you? Where can I find you, and where can I find your business if I want an instructional code? Like if I need an instruction, right? If I need a DIY course that I need to take, where can I find you?
DiscoveryDWI.com.
Okay. And if you like to share, how about a personal? Because what if I have questions for you and I see you on this podcast and I'm like, I want to ask Barbara something. Where can we find you?
You can email me at Holguin, the first letter of my name, Holguin, last name, HOLGUIN, at discoverydwi.com.
Awesome.
And message me, reach out to me. I answer all of them.
Thank you. We'll definitely provide all the links to everything that you're providing, whatever it is that you're providing to us. We'll add and we'll share with the community. But thank you, Barbara, for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hi. What did you think of that conversation? Barbara has a lot of insight. I think it was a little bit. Now, I don't know how this interview is going to go. Now, it might have gone a little bit. Internet sucks. I'm going to be really honest. And this was like hot time of like, I know everybody's connected to the wireless internet, the Wi-Fi. I'm not trying to make excuses. What I'm trying to say is she has an amazing program that I think we might have not emphasized on a little bit more than I would like to. So Barbara, let me read you a little bit on Barbara. So Barbara started her own, she's a stay-at-home mother who was in the criminal justice. She was a probation officer for more than 10 years. So what ended up happening is after, of course, as a lot of mothers who want to stay home with their children, who the guilt of not seeing their children, watch them raise them, watch them grow, becomes a lot. And she wanted to watch her kids grow. So she left that part of her career. But of course, she still wanted something to call her own. So she started her own business. What she ended up doing was actually opening up a school, a DIY school, where she would give classes in the evening and on the weekends, their DWI courses. So she's an instructor herself. She became an entrepreneur. She actually attended our Latina Entrepreneurship Conference last year. She was one of our attendees. I think she has something that it can grow significantly. And she has a lot of input. She's learning the journey, and she is so willing to help the Latinas in the community, to teach and want to tell people how to know and how to grow. So I'm going to tap into her again one more time, but I wanted to introduce her to the community because I want you to see who she is. So with that being said, I really hope you enjoy this conversation, and then I'm going to have her back on the podcast. So con eso, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
What did you think of the conversation? If you enjoyed what you heard, let us know in the comments. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you for listening to the Latina Leadership Podcast, and we will see you next time.